Hi everyone, this is Aaron Breitman. I'm the managing editor for On the Banks. And with the Big Ten tournament coming to Madison Square Garden this week, I thought it would be appropriate to look back at Rutgers men's basketball and its history at the Garden. Many memorable games played there over the years, and just wanted to highlight a few as we get going into the Big Ten tournament this week at the Garden. First, in program history, a notable team and the most successful team at the time, the 1967 version, led by program legend Bob Lloyd and favorite son Jim Valvano. Third place finish in the NIT, back when the NIT really was the preeminent tournament in postseason play. And it was the best finish for Rutgers at the time, and it really set up the next decade for Rutgers to become a very, very good college basketball program, which culminated in the 1976 Final Four and undefeated regular season. A member of that team led Rutgers to another memorable win at the Garden in the 1978 ECAC Holiday Festival, another tournament Rutgers has played in many times over the years, and they shocked the Buckeyes. Ohio State was ranked at the time. I've heard from a few people that attended the game what a wild scene it was, and how many Rutgers fans were there, and how the Garden was bursting with Rutgers chants. And James Bailey had a monster game, and Rutgers upset the Buckeyes in triple overtime. Obviously, once Rutgers joined the Big East, they were in the Big East Conference tournament at the Garden most years. There were a couple years they didn't qualify when the Big East had a skewed number of teams. But they played many memorable games there over the year. None more being more important than the 1998 quarterfinal win over Georgetown, the Jeff Billick game when he hit the shot at the buzzer. I was there at the lower level when he hit it, afternoon game of that session, and there were UConn fans were there cheering Rutgers on, believe it or not, to beat Georgetown. But one game that's forgotten is the day before, which was Rutgers' first Big East Conference tournament victory ever, when they upset a ranked West Virginia team to get to that game with Georgetown. And then, unfortunately, Rutgers did lose to UConn, the conference champion and ultimate Big East tournament champion that year, in the semifinals, lost by 14. But it was the farthest Rutgers has ever made, ever advanced in the Big East tournament in their history. Moving on, 2004 NIT run, Quincy Douby, freshman, breakout run in that tournament. He had the 35-point game against Iowa State in overtime for Rutgers to advance to the NIT championship against now another conference foe, Michigan, who unfortunately has a history of beating Rutgers in our biggest basketball games. Michigan won in the 1976 Final Four in Philadelphia, and they won that night at the Garden. But there was another, great run in the city, and many Rutgers fans were there, and pride was everywhere, and obviously a scene we hope to replicate this week. After that, obviously there hasn't been a lot of great seasons since, but there were some important games, although some of them didn't end the way we wanted it. I wasn't at the 2010 Big East tournament. It was Fred Hill's last game as coach. And Mike Rosario missed a shot at the buzzer, and Rutgers lost to Cincinnati by 1 point. It was a tough loss, but I remember walking out of the Garden that night and thinking, well, at least the Fred Hill era is over. I was wrong at first. Tim Pernetti, the AD at the time, kept him, but thankfully to some bizarre behavior soon after by Hill at a baseball game, he ended up parting ways with Rutgers, and we moved on to the Mike Rice era, which leads us to the next year, where Rutgers had quite a memorable run and controversial ending. First off, they beat Seton Hall at the Garden in the opening round, which is also always an enjoyable experience, and Rice won the season series that year against Seton Hall, which led to a game against St. John's, who were ranked at the time at the Garden. Always a wild scene, especially in the Big East tournament. Rutgers had lost by 2 points to St. John's earlier in the year and went into this game with a real shot, and it was arguably the worst officiated game Rutgers has ever played in. terrible calls at the end of the game. You know, everyone remembers the refs ending the game short, not calling St. John's on a travel or stepping out of bounds and running off the court. Even Mike Francesa, never the biggest Rutgers supporter, was livid after the game, screaming and claiming that this wasn't right. The Big East even ruled it was mistakes by the officials. But one call that gets forgotten is the Mike Coburn no call foul when he went up for a shot and was obviously fouled, no call. So Rutgers, really got the short end of the stick on several calls in that game. So thank you, Burr and Higgins. Will live in infamy in Rutgers fans' lore. And then after that, Rutgers played in their last Big East tournament games the following season before moving on to the AAC, where they beat DePaul but lost to Notre Dame in the second round. And actually, that was the last time in Big East history that Rutgers played at the Garden. Since then, they've played a couple times. The most memorable was last year playing Wisconsin at the Garden, a game I was at as well. And they had a 9-point lead with 3 minutes and 22 seconds to play, and unfortunately it didn't work out. Ethan Happ went off, and Wisconsin won in overtime. So, there's been highs and lows throughout the years. But it's always fun to go to the Garden, the world's greatest arena, in my opinion, the best place to watch college basketball, except the RAC, and also a great place to see a concert. But that's not the point of this. And with the Big Ten tournament coming up this week, hopefully Rutgers can recapture some magic and give Rutgers fans a little bit of a run through the Big Ten tournament and win a game or two. So stick with us at On the Banks, and we'll have all the coverage we can. We'll be there. I'll be there with Brian Fonseca. And we hope to have a memorable run at the Garden once again. And thanks for watching and reading our site.